The NFL Draft Combine has wrapped up, and yesterday was a big day because that's when the quarterbacks threw. Those were the drills for the quarterbacks. And one guy that's starting to pick up some steam is Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. He definitely showed some good things out there in the deep passing drills. He also did have some issues with accuracy on certain drills. And this morning we got a report from Vic Tafur of The Athletic, and he stated that we heard that Jalen Milroe did really good as far as interviews go and being on the board when it comes to talking about how he reads things. Pre and post snap reads. I think he's a guy who really stood out, not just with the Raiders, but also with other teams from what I heard this week. So definitely an interesting report. I think the Raiders should most definitely be in the market for drafting a quarterback this offseason. But the biggest question mark is, with us being at 6, what exactly are we going to do? Are we going to take a quarterback in the first round? Is a quarterback even going to be available when it comes to Cam Ward or Shador? In that case, what do? Do they just go best player available? Do they trade down? A lot of questions about that. And the interesting thing about a guy like Jalen Milroe is, at this point, I don't think he's going to be a first round talent. He didn't do very well in the Senior Bowl. Yesterday, I would say he did solid in the Combine. Had some good moments and had some bad moments. One thing that really shocked me though was that he did not run the 40-yard dash, which, look, if you're a guy that wants us to draft Jalen Milroe, that could definitely work in our favor, because I thought Jalen Milroe was going to be a guy that if he ran that 40-yard dash, he very well could run a 4.4. And for him being a guy that's 6 foot, 220 pounds, and if he would have ran a 4.4, I think that would have definitely helped his draft stock. But currently, I think he very likely is going to be a second round pick. But as we get closer to the draft, we'll just have to evaluate whether or not his stock is rising or falling. I think Jalen Milroe, look, he's definitely an interesting prospect. He's a guy that has a lot of upside just due to the physical attributes he has. When you're talking about a running quarterback, a dual threat guy, he runs the ball like nobody else. He's a super explosive, powerful runner. When he runs that football, at times it literally looks like it's a running back out there. He has a super strong arm, so when it came to those deep ball drills, I wasn't shocked that he did pretty well in those. That's not his issue. He has a big arm. He can get the ball down the field. Really, his issue to me is the consistency with his accuracy throwing the football and his overall decision making as a potential pocket passer in the National Football League. And that's where I think Jalen Milroe, sure, he has a lot of upside, but he's a guy that to me is going to have to take some time. I think he would be best served to go to a situation where he could sit for at least a year, and then after that evaluate his progression, work on his overall mechanics, get used to an offense. And even then, he has to be put in a situation where he's under a good offensive-minded head coach or an offensive coordinator. Now, I will say with the Raiders making the move to hire Chip Kelly as our offensive coordinator, that could be a really good fit with a guy like Jalen Milroe. Chip Kelly's super familiar with these mobile style quarterbacks that can throw on the move, that you can get them involved in read options, RPOs, things of that nature. And I would honestly say one thing that we can say about Chip Kelly is, to me, he definitely is like a quarterback whisperer type of coach. He's just done really well with quarterbacks. He's worked with dual threat quarterbacks, pocket passers. Shit, at one point he had Mark Sanchez looking like a pretty solid quarterback at his days with the Philadelphia Eagles. So the guy knows how to work with quarterbacks. He knows how to build an offense around the strengths of the quarterback. So I think in a situation where the Raiders did draft a guy like Jalen Milroe, it could work out. But at that point, he's not going to be a player that makes an immediate impact for the Raiders. He's going to have to take some time to develop. But there's no doubt the upside, the potential is there with the Jalen Milroe. Look, every year in the draft, there's always one prospect that's pretty raw like this, that has very impressive physical traits. And a lot of times these quarterbacks get hyped up. They get selected in the first round. That's the only thing I would be definitely cautious with when it comes to Jalen Milroe though. If his draft stock rises when we get closer to the draft, If there's a lot of reports coming out that he's going to be a first-round pick, then that's where the Raiders should definitely watch out for. We definitely don't want this to be a situation like we saw 2 years ago with Anthony Richardson. I remember in that 2023 NFL draft process, Anthony Richardson early on in the offseason was seen by many as a third, second-round talent, and I definitely was intrigued with him just due to the upside and all the physical traits he had and brought to the table. But as soon as I saw his draft stock was rising like crazy, and ultimately he went super early in the draft. I believe he was a top 5 pick. I don't remember the exact pick that Indianapolis selected him with, but at the end of the day, they reached on a guy like him, and that's the one thing we have to watch out with Jalen Milroe. And it's hard to not compare the two. They, to me, are pretty similar prospects, both super talented athletically, big, strong arms, but they need to work on their accuracy, and they need to be refined as a pocket passer in the league. Now, don't get me wrong, though. I definitely understand that the NFL nowadays, the quarterback position has been leaning a lot more towards these athletic young quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to be consistent in the pocket, throwing the football down the field with your accuracy and making reads as a quarterback. And when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, if there's one trait that scares me the most, it's the accuracy issues, because to me, those are one of the hardest things to develop for a quarterback. And it's one of those things that really negates everything as a quarterback. I mean, sure, you could have the strongest arm, you could be the fastest guy out there, you could check off all the boxes, but if you can't throw the ball in a tight window, if you can't get the ball to the correct shoulder, if you can't hit your wide receivers in stride, you're gonna struggle in the National Football League. The windows are too tight. The opposing NFL defensive backs are too fast. You're not gonna be getting wide open throws very often, so you have to be able to be accurate with the football. So that's one of the biggest things with him. He has to improve the accuracy. He typically struggles with consistency on short to intermediate throws, and just his overall performance last season with the Alabama Crimson Tide, a lot of ups and downs. You need more consistency. He had some great games like against Georgia, where he had 374 passing yards, 117 rushing yards, totaling with 4 touchdowns. So games like that definitely show the upside he can bring to the table. But at the same time, he had some really bad losses against Oklahoma and against Michigan in that bowl game that just showed his limitations in processing and accuracy throwing the football under pressure. And another thing that I think we have to take into consideration is the Tom Brady effect. With Tom Brady being in the building, I think he's definitely going to have a lot of influence on who the Raiders draft at the quarterback position. And if there's one thing about Tom Brady, if you ever heard him talk about the quarterback position, he talks about and emphasizes how important he believes in the total mindset of a quarterback when it comes to the X's and O's of football, being able to process and read defenses, pre-snap and post-snap. That was Tom Brady's biggest strength as a quarterback. So Tom Brady having a big role in selecting the quarterback, I would like to think that he may not be super inclined to draft a quarterback like Jalen Milroe and his skill sets. Now, you never truly know, but that's something I think we definitely have to consider. I would not be shocked if Tom Brady prefers a more traditional pocket-style quarterback, and that's something we have to watch out for in this year's draft. But Raider Nation, I definitely want to get you guys' feedback in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about this report? Do you think there is any chance the Raiders could potentially draft Jalen Milroe this year in the NFL draft? Let me know in that comment section down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that is all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that is new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.